Okay, moving on to the next team in the SEC that we will be going over today. And this is a team that I think, after the way they started last year, I think for the way they finished, and if you look at their record and you look at their final resume at the end of the season, I believe this team just deserves so much credit for the way they were able to finish last season, and that is Buzz Williams and his Texas A&M Aggies. And the Aggies are entering their second year with Buzz Williams leading their program, and I will admit, early during last season, it looked pretty rough for this Texas A&M team. They had a home game against Gonzaga, and I understand Gonzaga was expected to win that game, but I remember watching that game and Gonzaga winning by 30, and it was never close. And I just remember watching that game saying to myself, wow, what is the deal with this A&M team? Are they just going to be that bad? And then they lost to Harvard. They lost to Temple by 23. They lost to Fairfield. I understand you're not a very good squad last year, but if you're Texas A&M, I just don't think you could be out here losing to Fairfield. And then all of a sudden, during SEC play, this Aggie team actually turned it on. They had a really nice win against Missouri on the road. That's a win that, to be honest, Texas A&M going on the road to Missouri, that's any road win you could build on. How about going to Tennessee and winning? How about beating Missouri again at home? How about beating Georgia and Anthony Edwards? How about going on the road to Alabama and winning? How about beating Mississippi State at home? How about beating Auburn on the road, not even at home, on the road? How about beating Arkansas at home? So I was really impressed with what this Texas A&M Aggie team was able to do, really turning their season around. And one of the main reasons why I have them coming in 10th and really improving from last year's record is because of Buzz Williams. And I understand on paper, them finishing in 10th place isn't going to be some massive improvement, but at the same time, I do expect their players to improve, and I do think finishing in 10th place would be a pretty reasonable expectation if you're a fan of the Texas A&M Aggies, just because even though there is some optimism going from last year to this year, Texas A&M did lose a decent amount from last year's squad, including Josh Nebo, who was not only their best offensive player, but he was really their best defensive player as well. And I'm very curious to see how exactly Texas A&M is going to replace him, because he graduated this offseason. Texas A&M lost with Nebo its leading scorer, its second leading rebounder, and its best shot blocker. Josh Nebo was really the centerpiece of Buzz Williams' pack line-esque defense. He really protected the rim in the middle. And in order to replace him, Buzz Williams did go to the grad transfer market and bring in Kevin Marfo, who used to play at Quinnipiac and George Washington. He actually led the country in rebounding last season, but to be honest, everything I've heard about Kevin Marfo is that he's a really good rebounder, and besides that, there's not really much else he could do. I'm going to be curious to see if he could expand and improve his game while playing at Texas A&M, or the fact of him just playing in the SEC. I'm curious to see what exactly that does to his game. Is that going to really impact his rebounding numbers at all? They also bring in the sophomore forward, Emmanuel Miller, who is going to be very important to this Buzz Williams squad, and Jonathan Aku, the 6'10 sophomore. He should see more time with Nebo, no longer there, and I think he will provide Texas A&M with more rebounding and shooting off the bench. But Texas A&M last year, I feel like not a lot of people are going to talk about it, just because it's not like they were going to make the tournament or anything, and it's not like they really had that much or that big of a quality win. But at the same time, I really do think Buzz Williams and the rest of his staff just deserve so much credit for turning this team around, especially when you consider, right, a lot of times when a new coach comes into a new program in college basketball, a lot of times it will take a year or two for the coach to really rub off his effectiveness on it. And I feel like a lot of times we see that first year just be very bland. There aren't great vibes around the program, and we always make the excuse of, oh, just wait till the coach starts bringing in his own guys. And the funny thing is, I think that's BS, because Buzz Williams, as soon as you become the head coach of a college basketball program, then all of the players are quote-unquote your guys. And I feel like last year, Buzz Williams really impressed me, because Texas A&M was once again losing to Harvard. They were losing to Temple. They were losing to Fairfield. And they were legitimately one of the worst Power 6 teams in college basketball. If there are any SEC basketball fans listening to this show, or any Aggie fans out there listening to this show, I think you'll tell me that same thing, that Texas A&M was just awful at the beginning of last season. And somehow, some way, after Texas A&M, I think this is really where their fortunes changed, and you're going to laugh at the schedule, but Texas A&M won 3 games in a row against Texas A&M Corpus Christi on Sunday, December 15th. They only won that game by 3 points. Then against Oregon State, big home win. Pac-12 team, nothing great, but still a solid home win for the Aggies. And then they beat Texas Southern by 3. If you're the Texas A&M Aggies at any point last year and you win 3 in a row, that's a spot where you could build momentum. And I think that was a stretch that really helped them right before SEC play build some momentum into the conference season, because after that, they were able to beat Ole Miss, able to beat Vanderbilt, able to beat Missouri, able to beat Tennessee. I mean, guys, the fact that this team went on the road to Tennessee and won, and I know Tennessee wasn't your vintage Tennessee squad last year, but they're still Tennessee. It's still Thompson-Boling Arena, which is always one of the tougher places to play in college basketball. And I do think, with that being said, Buzz Williams did do a lot of good work last year with the Texas A&M Aggies. And with that being said, I'm really looking forward to see what exactly he'll do this year. Now, you look at the Texas A&M rotation, Andre Jackson is going to be their starting point guard. He's a guy I really like. He's kind of from that Marcus Smart combo guard mold, averaged 6 and 2 and 1 last year. He could play a little bit. Quentin Jackson is going to be more of a shot creator, especially with Texas A&M losing Wendell Mitchell. He was one of their more consistent shot creators last season as well. I'm going to be curious to see if guys like Quentin Jackson, guys like Savion Flagg, and guys like Manuel Miller will be able to increase that role and maybe give Texas A&M and Buzz Williams a little more production there. And then they bring in some freshmen. And I feel like last year, Buzz Williams wasn't really able to bring in his full recruiting cycle of players, but this year he's going to be able to do that with Jackson Robinson, the 6'5 freshman. I think he'll be a guy that will play right away. Hassan Jara, the 6'2 freshman, same with him. He could play a little bit, and I feel like if anyone could maybe lap Jackson or maybe join him in that starting backcourt, maybe give him some help, it would be Hassan Jara. He is really the most dynamic freshman of the Aggies in this class. And then also Hayden Hefner, the 6'5 freshman. I'm going to be curious to see if that athletic wing will be able to get on the floor as well. But I do think if you're a Texas A&M fan, you have to have faith in Buzz Williams. Everywhere this guy has gone, he's been able to turn the program around, and it's only year 2. And I do think last year Buzz really showed you that he had the Aggies and this rebuild ahead of schedule. I really didn't love the way the program was left when Billy Kennedy decided to leave. I feel like that was a move that was kind of better for both sides. And I do think Buzz Williams is really going to have things at this Texas A&M program rolling eventually. It's just a matter of time.